I'm sorry for looking so trashy today, but I didn't expect to be filming this. And I completely forgot I was wearing faded lipstick until this moment. And I don't want to go outside and get the lipstick tube, and I don't want to go take it off right now. So you're gonna have to live with it. So it is March 5th. And I should have done this video a while ago, but I didn't. And today I'm going to be doing my February wrap-up. I finished 27 books in February. I don't have like specific stats because this was a very unprepared video. But without further ado, I have my list right here. Let's just get into all the books I read in February. So the first book I finished in February. I actually started it in January. I finished it in February, but that is Girls of Paper and Fire, Burn, Passion Again. I ended up giving this book 4.5 stars. I really enjoyed the atmosphere. I really enjoyed the characters. I enjoyed pretty much everything about it. The only thing was that the main character got kind of annoying at parts. So I kind of like took half a point off for that. But otherwise, I really enjoyed this book. It is currently residing on my favorite shelf. So there's that. I really enjoyed it. Like I said, I highly recommend it. Girls of Paper and Fire is about a girl from the paper caste, which is the lowest caste. It is the human caste, and she gets chosen to be a paper girl, which is basically, she is, what's the word they use? The main character, Lei, is chosen to be a concubine for the Demon King. The demon caste in here is, I think, called the Moon caste. And it's all about how she falls in love with this other girl who is also a paper girl through her time being a paper girl, and just it's a really good read. Female romance, which was really refreshing. The next book I read this month was Naomi and Eli's No Kiss List by Rachel Cohen and David Levithan. I ended up giving this book 4 stars. I read this book because I was going to do a video, and I still might do a video, about watching a movie adaptation of a book before reading the book. So I watched the movie adaptation on Netflix before I read this book, and, you know, I ended up liking the movie better. The thing is, you can tell that this book was written in the early 2000s, just like, you can tell. The main issue that I had with this book was that Naomi was desperately in love with Eli the entire time, and she never once, was like, oh yeah, he's gay, this isn't gonna happen. She basically was waiting for him to not be gay anymore so that he would love her back. And that's kind of problematic, but that was like the only major thing that I didn't like about this book. Otherwise, it was pretty good. Like I said, I gave it 4 stars. It's about this girl and her best friend. He's gay, she's straight, and they compile a list of guys that they can't kiss so that their friendship doesn't fall apart. The third book I read this month is An Enchantment of Ravens by Margaret Rogerson. I ended up giving this book 2 stars because I didn't really like it. It's about this girl that gets taken into the fairy realm because she painted a portrait of a fae prince with human emotion in his eyes. And then once she's taken into the fairy realm, they have no clear explanation as to what she is doing in the fairy realm, why he brought her to the fairy realm. And then I think he gets like injured or something, and like they end up in the spring realm, the spring court, and they both know the leader of the spring court, and they're falling in love even though there's a law that they can't fall in love, but they're doing it anyway because, you know, they have to, apparently. This is such a terrible case of insta-love, not just because the human female is like, oh shit, he's hot, I'm gonna fall in love with him, but because the guy, the 500-plus-year-old fae, is like, oh yeah, we've been in each other's presence 2 weeks and I'm in love with her. And that's not how it works. I assure you, like, especially if he's a 500-year-old fae, he's not going to fall in love in 2 weeks. You know, the whole thing is that, like, people who are immortal experience things differently because of the time crunch. Humans are in a huge time crunch because they only live 100 years. If 100 years is like a blink of the eye to them, then it's not gonna only take 2 weeks for this guy to fall in love. It's just not what's going to happen. Also, the implication that fae can't create just because they are fae, I don't understand why we do this. I don't know. I guess I just don't really like fae books because I didn't really like the ACOTAR series. I don't know. I guess I'll keep trying and figure it out eventually. The next book I read this month is Carry On by Rainbow Rowell, and I loved it. I gave it 5 stars. I don't have a whole lot to say about this book because it was just great. I love Baz. I think a lot of the other characters are just kind of annoying. I don't particularly like them, except for Baz. Baz is like my spirit animal. I love him so much. Oh, Baz. There's not a whole lot to say about their relationship because, like, they're okay together, I guess. I like them together. It's not like I particularly dislike them together. It's just that I don't have strong feelings of like, oh my goodness, they're perfect for each other. I think it's a hate to love story, and I love hate to love. It's one of the best because they already have that passion going and then they're together. And, you know, it did not disappoint for a hate to love story, and it did not disappoint for what good things I've been hearing about it. So I'm very glad that I read it. I really loved Baz. I thought pretty much everyone else was annoying. I could kind of predict the Madge's role in all this. I did predict that plotline a little bit, but like, it's fine. I really loved it. This is also on my favorite shelf, so, you know, it's fine. The next book I read this month was Fence #1 by C.S. Paycat. I ended up giving this one 3 stars, and I'm going to push this one further along in the wrap-up because I read more of the series later on, and I don't want to talk about this one on its own because they're really short. There's not a whole lot to go off of, so I'm just gonna push it and like talk about it later. And the next book then that I read this month is Hephaestus, God of Fire by George O'Connor. I give this one 5 stars because how am I not going to? I love George O'Connor. I love his graphic novels, especially his Olympians graphic novels. I've been following him since like 2015. Everything he's come out with is amazing. I highly recommend all of them. In his Olympians graphic novels, each one follows a different god, like one of the main 12 Olympians, and this one was Hephaestus. And even though I have liked Hephaestus in the past, he's never been like a solid favorite of mine, but I really, really, really love this book. And that's generally how it goes with like the Olympians. I really love whoever we're doing the story about. I have opened up to a lot more Olympians through this series. Like, I wasn't a huge fan of Apollo, and then I read the Apollo one and I loved him and I almost cried during it. And then I read the Hermes one and I've never been a huge fan of Hermes and I loved him. I mean, there's no way anyone is ever going to redeem Zeus for me, but you know, that's fine. That's my issue and I need to work on it. It was also one of my most anticipated releases of the year, and it definitely like pulled through. The next book that I read this month is The Hate You Give by Angie Thomas. I ended up giving this book 4 stars, and I do have a vlog for it, which I will link down below. This book did not disappoint in the emotional feelings that I had during reading it. If you watch the vlog, there are like 5 times that I'm like, this book almost made me cry. And it never ended up making me cry, I'm a little sad to say, but it did almost make me cry a lot. This glare is terrible. I'm sorry, you know the cover. But I ended up really enjoying this book. I really loved the message. The only thing was that all of the major plot points were really like spread out I didn't really like the filler, and that was the major issue I had with it, and I think that's why it took me so long to get through this book, but I finally did, and I'm excited that I finally got through it, and I'm glad I got through it. After that, I read Check Please Year 3 by Ngozi Ukazu. I actually read the webcomic Year 3 and it was on Goodreads, so I'm like, I'm counting it. Obviously, I gave it 5 stars. I don't know what you want me to say. Just please go read it. It made me cry. I was reading it in my computer class, like sitting there trying not to cry, and it made me laugh out loud, and I just, it tugs at the heartstrings, it tugs at the funny bone. Like, please go read that webcomic, that book, whatever you want to call it, please read it. Then on Valentine's Day, I read Tell Me Again How a Crush Should Feel by Sarah Farzan. This was a reread for me because I really enjoyed the book back a couple years ago, and I've been wanting to reread it for a while now, and I reread it and I gave it 5 stars. Obviously, it was so great. I loved it. This book is about a girl who's in a predominantly white, expensive school as a Persian American, and she kind of has to deal with that, being kind of that outsider. And on top of that, she likes girls, and that is not something that her classmates know about her, and she has to keep it under wraps, and it's been going okay because she's never had a crush on someone in her school. But all of that changes when the new girl moves there. I think the new girl's name is Saskia. I don't know how you pronounce it, but I don't know the main girl's name. Sorry. I have a vlog for this one as well. I again will link it below. I also have a vlog for Girls of Paper and Fire. I forgot to mention, again, we'll link it below. But I really enjoyed this book. I give it 5 stars again. And, you know, it is one of my all-time favorites, I think. And now we get to a couple of the duds for this month. The Last of August by Brittany Cavallaro. I ended up giving it 1.5 stars. Even though I gave this 1.5 stars and I rated a book 1 star this month, this was the worst book I read this month. I don't like The Last of August. I don't like this series. I don't know why I continue on with it. I'm trying to only portray my feelings after The Last of August because my feelings change a little bit in book 3, so I'm just trying to go with it. But The Last of August for me was super annoying. I don't understand why Jamie complains all the time. He likes to blame Charlotte for their lack of a relationship. He likes to blame literally everyone for everything wrong that's going on in his life and take absolutely none of the blame for himself because he's a dick. And that's just all I have to say about that. The sex scene in this was completely unnecessary. I don't understand the point for it at all because, you know, it didn't need to be there. I was listening to it on audiobook and I was in the library when I was listening to it, so I'm just like sitting there like this, waiting for it to pass because I was not enjoying it. And then finally I finished the audiobook, and that was part of the happiest experience that I had whilst reading this book. The Last of August could also be titled Jamie Gets a Boner Every 3 Pages, because he got a boner every 3 pages. It was like Brittany Cavallaro was like, how are we going to portray that Jamie Watson is a teenage male? Let's give him boners all the frickin' time. My 1-star book this month was The Jock and the Fat Chick by Nicole Winters. I will link my Goodreads review down below because I think I explain myself a lot better and why I didn't like it down there. But mainly, everyone was talking about how the title is problematic, and I kind of see both sides with this. The reason I think the title of this book and the content in this book is problematic is kind of like the I can say it but you can't. And it's basically that, because fat can be used as a self-descriptor word. Like, I can say I am fat and not mean anything negative by it, but you can't say that the next person that isn't fat says that and it isn't offensive and it isn't meant in a negative way. You can't. It's just that it's weird to explain, but that's how it is. So if you want to call yourself fat, that is fine. Do not call someone else fat because the root of that word is very offensive. But fat as a self-descriptor word is okay. And I don't know if I'm explaining this correctly, but this is how I see it. So the title, The Jock and the Fat Chick, implicates that he is calling her fat as a degrading way, because throughout the book, that is how fat is used. So therefore, the title kind of is degrading and demeaning. So that's why I don't agree with it. However, you could argue one way or another. It's up to you how you take it. But I ended up giving this 1 star because of that message and because of just Victor. I didn't like him. The main character wasn't great. I didn't like the romance between the two. Why do we keep doing friends with benefits and expecting it to just end? Just end? Because you know at this point that every friends with benefits relationship is going to end up in them falling for each other, because that's how it goes. And it was predictable, but it was trashy, and I did kind of enjoy it, but it didn't have great messages, so I gave it 1 star. And now we're back to Fence. So in a couple days I binged 2 through 12 of Fence, which isn't hard because they're like 20 pages each. But I really enjoyed this whole series so far. I hope there are new ones coming out but every one of them ended on a cliffhanger. They were just kind of too short to really get into the story like that quickly. And I did like Adrian. Adrian is one of my favorite characters. I like the other senior captain. I am so happy about what happened and how Nicholas ended up. I am interested to see Nicholas and Sanjay, their relationship, how it is going to evolve because they're roommates, blah 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 blah. But I ended up giving these books like 3 through 5 stars. I don't remember like each one what I gave it, but 3 through 5 stars. I ended up giving the end ones 5 stars, the ones in the middle 4 stars. It was just kind of a toss-up of whatever. But I did really enjoy them. I am going to continue on. The next book I read this month is Truly Devious by Maureen Johnson, and I gave this 4 stars. It took me a while to get through this book, but I did really enjoy it. I was a little sad that we didn't have a full mystery in book 1 and then a full mystery in book 2, but I do kind of see how that's going to be better for me in the long run to like have to wait for the mystery, because usually now when you read mystery books, like you book 1 and you're done. As far as characters go, I pretty much like Stevie. I like Janelle. Nate was my favorite character. I did not like what's his face that they started dating. Hayes I didn't like. Ellie was okay. So across the board, kind of on the better end of okay. Character wise, plot wise, like I said, it took a while to get into. It took a while for me to finish, so it was kind of slow plot wise. It did make me laugh. It made me feel things. It made me really interested to read book 2, which I'm going to do eventually. I don't know if I'm going to get to it in March, but we'll see. But overall, I really did enjoy this book, and I am going to continue on with the series. Then I read Check Please #Hockey by Nkosi Kazu. Again, obviously I gave this 5 stars. This is my favorite book, one of my favorite books. I love it so much. I want everyone to read it. Please go read it and talk with me about how amazing it is. You know, this story is about Eric Biddle, who just moved to Samuel College to play hockey when previously he's only been in like a community hockey league and a figure skating club, and in the hockey there was no checking allowed, and now he's in college hockey where there obviously is checking allowed. And you know, the like Jack character, his captain is being bitchy to him, and then there's Shitty, who is an amazing character, and then there's Handsome Holster and Ransom, who are amazing characters as well. This book is just filled with amazing characters, lovable characters, and it makes me laugh out loud, and it makes you feel things, and I love it so much, and please read it. The next book I read this month was Wildcard by Marie Lu. I'm sorry about the glare on these books. I gave this book 4 stars. I listened to it on audiobook. I think that I waited a little too long after reading Warcross to read Wildcard because I didn't really know what was happening. It was okay. I actually enjoyed Wildcard more than Warcross. However, I think Warcross is like more objectively a better novel. I do understand that this one was slower paced, but like I said, I enjoyed it more. I love the characters in this book with my whole heart. I love them so much, and it was so interesting to see Hideo thrown into Warcross, and I would like to see like intensely him in Warcross if he's like amazing at it. Like I said, I love all the teammates, and I did love the very end. I didn't think I was going to love the very end, but I loved it, and I just, oof. The ending was probably the best part for me, besides all the characters, obviously, because all the characters are amazing, but like, there was a lot to love in this book. Like I said, I liked it more than book 1, but it wasn't objectively better. It's just my personal preference, and yeah, that's that. And we're back to Charlotte Holmes. So the next book I read this month was The Case for Jamie by Brittany Cavallaro, and I ended up giving this 3 stars. I found out that I don't like Jamie. I don't like Jamie as a character. I don't like how he describes things. I think he's a really whiny character. He likes to blame stuff on other people, and he doesn't, like I said, describe people well. Because I hated Charlotte for the first 2 books, and then when we had Charlotte's point of view, I loved her. I loved her character. It was great, and I actually loved in book 2 when we had Charlotte's POV. It was going to redeem the book for me, but then it didn't. But book 3, I really enjoyed because of Charlotte's point of view, and I have started listening to book 4 on audiobook, and it seems to be all in Charlotte's point of view, which is exciting. But like I said, 3 stars. It was okay, enough to make me carry on with the series, but, you know, it's just... I don't have very strong opinions on this one. I think book 2 is when I had the strongest opinions, where I'm like, this is an idiot, he's an idiot. However, Jamie is an idiot. I do really think Jamie is an idiot. I do think that these books kind of don't have a whole lot of plot outside of the main hierarchy arc of a mystery, and we get like one clue spiced through in a book. So I do think that these books could kind of be condensed down a little bit, like, you know, plick some parts. I don't really like the romance. I don't really like them together. It's just, I liked them when they were apart. That was the best. And then let's push Jamie and we'll just leave Charlotte, and that would be a great book. But, you know, apparently we can't do that, so... And then I actually DNF'd a book this month, and I do want to talk about that. So the book I DNF'd is The Truth About Alice by Jennifer Mathieu, who also wrote Moxie, which I love, by the way. But The Truth About Alice is a book that I read back freshman year of high school, and I really enjoyed it back freshman year of high school. It's a book about this girl, Alice, and, you know, she apparently slept with 2 guys in one night and was the reason for the star quarterback getting killed in a car accident, because she was sexting him at the time. But the thing is, none of the aftermath is told in her point of view, so we're kind of given bits and pieces from different people. So the quarterback's best friend, the guy that really likes her and follows her around, the like preppy cheerleader, main popular girl, and the like wants to be popular or like more popular kind of girl. So they were very cliche characters. I didn't really like their voices. A lot of the times there would be, oh, I know this sounds conceited, or I know this sounds creepy, but hear me out. And that was kind of weird for me. I didn't really enjoy it. And ultimately, I can understand why I liked it freshman year, but I am a different person. I'm a different reader than I was freshman year, and I DNF'd this book and I didn't enjoy it. I got 70 pages in, and I know that doesn't seem like a whole lot to like DNF a book, but this book was less than 200 pages, so 70 pages is a good chunk of it, if you consider it that way. And the final book I read in February is The Duff by Cody Keplinger. I gave this book 3 stars, and I reread it because the jock and the fat chick was very reminiscent of The Duff, I feel. And I read The Duff back when I was 13, and I've been wanting to, again, reread it for a while, so I decided this month, after reading The Jock and the Fat Chick, which was very reminiscent of this book, it would be the perfect time to reread it. Like I always do when I read this book, I flew through it. It is very trashy, and it doesn't take a long time to read. I actually kind of annotated this time, wrote a couple of notes in while I was reading, and while I don't think this book is going to reclaim a favorite spot on my shelf, I do understand why it was a favorite at the time, and that it does hold a very special place in my heart, and it is like a stepping stone to a lot of things I love in reading. I really love the hate to love aspect of romances. That's one of my favorite romance tropes, and hate to love is in this. I really enjoy very unapologetic characters, bitchy characters, again, in this. And I like the overwhelming guy and the overwhelming girl who can barely stand each other, but they can stand each other. And again, something I love and something that was in this book. That being said, I do see all the flaws now when I didn't when I was 13 when I read it at first. So I can see why I liked it back then, but as much as I can appreciate it as something I loved then, I don't quite like it as much now, and that's okay. So that was my February wrap-up. I had a great reading month, I feel. Let me know down in the comments below what you read in February, if you read any of these books, if you enjoyed any of these books, if you had a great reading month in February. As always, make sure to like and subscribe, and I will see you sometime for a new one. Bye!